Two families, 20 years of blood, one theft that started it all. A quiet evening in Glasgow shattered by gunshots echoing through narrow alleyways. Windows darken, doors lock, a neighborhood holds its breath. Across town, masked men sharpen machetes in stolen cars, awaiting orders sent via encrypted apps. This isn't a scene from a gritty crime movie. This is Scotland today, where one missing drug shipment sparked 2 decades of violence, revenge, and terror that still grip the country. From a few last months, Scotland became a criminal documentary of violence that has left communities shaken. In what police describe as an ongoing cycle of retaliation, a 16-year-old boy was stabbed multiple times in a brutal attack. It wasn't random. According to investigators, this was a targeted revenge assault, carefully planned through encrypted messaging apps. The boy, who had no criminal record, was reportedly targeted solely because of his family ties. It was not street violence, it was military-level coordination. But the violence didn't stop there. Then came the garage attack in East Kilbride that shocked even hardened police officers. 2 men were nearly killed when a gang of machete-wielding attackers struck without warning. Security cameras captured the entire assault, masked figures emerging from stolen cars, weapons glinting in the daylight, and victims running for their lives through pools of their own blood. What makes these attacks so terrifying isn't just their brutality, it's their precision. Each victim was carefully chosen, each attack was meticulously planned, and each assault was designed to send a message that echoed through Scotland's criminal underworld. This war is far from over. Your first thought might be some casual mob case, or must be some crazy one-off incident, right? And actually, these attacks were just the latest pieces of a much bigger, scarier puzzle. They're connected to real families, real neighborhoods, and real people caught in the middle of something that started over 20 years ago. 2 crime families decided they hated each other more than anything else in the world. And when criminals go to war, innocent people pay the price. But to understand the whole story, we need to go back to the early 2000s. Glasgow was a tough city, but it had rules. The criminal world was split between 2 big families, the Daniels and the Lyons. Think of them like 2 rival companies, except instead of selling phones or cars, they dealt drugs, ran protection schemes, and controlled territory. The Daniel family was led by Jamie Daniel, a man who was both smart in business and feared for his violence. They controlled a big part of the drug trade in North Glasgow, but this wasn't just small-time selling on the street. Jamie's group ran a serious, well-organized operation. They got their drugs from places like Amsterdam, Liverpool, and even Pakistan. To hide all the drug money, they owned some real businesses too. Taxi companies, security firms, and construction business. These helped them clean the dirty money and keep things looking normal. On the other side were the Lyons family. Eddie Lyons Sr. was their leader, coming from an old Glasgow crime family. They mostly controlled the east part of the city and had their own way of doing things. They were very loyal to each other and didn't hesitate to use extreme violence if they felt disrespected. The Lyons also had some small businesses, like garages, to hide their illegal money. What a lot of people don't realize is that these 2 families weren't just local. They had connections far beyond Scotland. The Daniels worked with some Irish Republican gangs to smuggle weapons and drugs. Meanwhile, the Lyons had ties to organised crime groups in Liverpool and London, which gave them access to bigger drug routes. For some time, things were pretty calm. The Daniels ruled the north side, the Lyons controlled the east, and they mostly stayed in their own areas. Sometimes they even worked together on big drug shipments. But under the surface, the younger generation from both families wasn't happy with the old way of doing things. Sons and nephews, who grew up enjoying the money, wanted more power. The first real problem happened in 2001. A shipment of cocaine, worth about €20,000, disappeared from a Daniels safe house in Milton. The Daniels believed the Lyons took it, and the Lyons were later heard selling the drugs. This small theft sparked a dangerous feud between the 2 families. By 2003, things got worse. There were 2 shootings just 11 days apart. One of Jamie Daniels' top men, Kevin Gerbil Carroll, was shot but survived. Then Johnny Lyons was also shot and survived. It was clear that this wasn't just a business fight anymore, it was personal. The tension kept growing until November 2006, when Kevin Carroll crossed a line that shocked even other criminals. He vandalized the grave of an 8-year-old boy named Gary Lyons by pulling down his headstone with a 4x4 vehicle. People said that was too far. Less than a month later, in December 2006, the Daniels hit back hard. 2 gunmen stormed a garage called Applero Motors, a business tied to the Lyons. They fired 11 shots. Michael Lyons, just 21 years old, was killed, and his cousin Stephen Lyons, along with another man, were badly hurt. From then on, there was no turning back. The police started Operation Engagement to stop the growing violence, but it only got worse. Over the next few years, pubs were firebombed, family members were attacked, and businesses were destroyed. Both families brought in help from outside. Gangsters from Liverpool, Manchester, Dublin, and Belfast came to fight alongside them. The violence spread beyond Glasgow too. Places like Edinburgh, Paisley, and East Kilbride became part of the war zone. What began as a fight over €20,000 worth of drugs turned into one of the deadliest gang wars Scotland had ever seen. The war was already brutal, but then along came a guy who made everything 10 times worse. Ross McGill, known on the streets as Big Man, was about to transform this local gang war into something that looked more like international terrorism. Ross McGill started out as a football ultra with Rangers Union Bears. You know, those hardcore fans who sometimes cause trouble at matches. But Miami discovered he had a talent for violence that went way beyond throwing punches at rival supporters. Born in 1973 in Glasgow's Gorbals, Miami grew up in poverty but with big ambitions. He looked at this gang war between the Daniels and Lyons and saw something that other criminals missed, an opportunity to build something completely new. The Lyons family needed soldiers, and Miami was ready to lead them. But he wasn't just interested in joining their fight, he wanted to change the whole game. While other gangsters acted like street thugs, Miami thought like a military strategist. And here's where it gets interesting. Miami didn't simply join the Lyons family, he created something new within their ranks. He called it Tamo Junto, which means we're together in Portuguese. This wasn't just a Scottish gang anymore, it was more like an international criminal network, with connections stretching from Glasgow to places like Dubai, Spain, and South America. Miami had studied how organized crime worked around the world. He looked at the Italian-American mafia, the Russian bratva, and the Colombian cartels. He took the best parts of each and adapted them for the digital age. His idea was to combine old-school loyalty and violence with modern technology and global connections. And that's exactly where Miami set up base, Dubai. While other gangsters were stuck on the streets of Scotland, Miami was living it up in luxury hotels, running operations from thousands of miles away. Smart? Definitely. Dangerous? Absolutely. From Dubai, Miami planned attacks with precision. He used encrypted phones that changed numbers often. He moved money internationally using cryptocurrency and informal banking methods called hawala. He built a network of loyal soldiers ready to do his bidding. Most importantly, he kept his identity hidden from them, so if anyone got caught, they couldn't expose him. Miami's operation was unlike anything Scotland had seen. He recruited former military personnel with real combat experience. He hired hackers who could bypass security cameras and track rivals online. He even brought in former intelligence agents who taught his team how to avoid being watched. Some of the brutal attacks across Scotland, the stabbing of a 71-year-old outside his Edinburgh home, the violent garage assault in East Kilbride, the series of arson attacks were all linked back to orders from Miami and Dubai. What set Miami apart was his understanding of modern crime as warfare. While others thought locally, he thought globally. He could order hits in Glasgow while relaxing by a pool in Dubai. He could coordinate attacks in several cities without ever leaving his luxury apartment. And the best part for him? He was almost untouchable. But Miami's real innovation was psychological warfare. He didn't just want to hurt his enemies, he wanted to terrorize them. His attacks were designed to be shocking and public, meant to send a message. He wanted every member of the Daniel family, every associate, every friend to live in fear. He turned gang violence into a form of terrorism that affected entire communities. Let's break down exactly what happened in these recent attacks, because the details show just how sophisticated and brutal this war has become. Before this, in April 2025, there were several firebomb attacks in Edinburgh. Homes and properties linked to the rival gangs were set on fire, including a big attack on a house on Hay Drive. These attacks were done by a gang calling themselves Tamo Junto, led by Ross McGill, also called Miami. Their targets were people connected to Mark Richardson, who is in jail, and the Daniel family. This shows how far the violence has spread. Also, in May 2025, a man aged 54 was attacked outside his home in Edinburgh by masked men with machetes. The attackers escaped in a grey Land Rover Discovery. This man was linked to Mark Richardson's gang, and this attack shows how planned and serious the gang war has become. On May 8, 2025, a taxi company called Deuce Private Hire, linked to the Daniel gang, was firebombed. This was part of many arson attacks aiming to damage the rival gang's businesses and power. These recent violent acts show that the gang war between the Daniel family, the Lyons gang, and others, led by Ross McGill and Mark Richardson, has become worse. The gangs use machetes, guns, firebombs, and more to fight each other. The war is not only about control of places, but also about power and revenge. The violence is now more organised and dangerous than before, and looks like it will continue. Of course, Police Scotland wasn't just sitting around watching this chaos unfold. They recognised they were facing something they'd never seen before. This wasn't ordinary gang violence, this was organised terror that threatened every citizen in Scotland. Their response was massive. Operation Portaledge became one of the largest criminal investigations in Scottish history. Chief Constable Jo Farrell basically declared war on these crime families. She promised to create a hostile environment that would crush their operations. And they meant business. Thousands of hours of CCTV footage were analysed. Phone records were traced through multiple countries, financial networks were mapped and tracked, every connection, every transaction, every communication was put under a microscope. The investigation led to over 35 arrests in coordinated raids across Scotland. Police were smashing down doors at dawn, seizing weapons, drugs, and mountains of evidence. But for every criminal they arrested, new soldiers seemed to take their place. But slowly the tide started to turn. Key figures were getting arrested. The financial networks that funded the violence were being disrupted. The careful planning that had made these attacks so effective was being systematically dismantled. The police were learning to fight fire with fire. They started using the same international cooperation that the criminals used. They developed their own encryption breaking techniques. They followed the money across multiple countries and banking systems to catch the culprits. So where are we today? The war continues, though it's changed a lot due to police pressure and the passage of time. Some key figures are in prison, others have fled to places like Dubai or Spain, new players have emerged to fill the vacuum left by arrests and deaths. The violence has become more sophisticated and more international. What began as a local dispute between Glasgow families has evolved into something connected to global criminal networks. Miami's model of running operations from abroad has been copied by other criminals. Technology has completely changed the game. Encrypted communications make surveillance much harder for police. International banking allows money to be moved instantly across borders. Social media provides new ways to recruit young people and intimidate enemies. But the police have also adapted. They're using international cooperation more effectively. They've developed better techniques for tracking encrypted communications and following money trails. Operation Portaledge might be over, but the intelligence it gathered continues to fuel new investigations. The recent attacks we discussed at the beginning, the pensioner, the teenager, the garage workers, they represent both the evolution and the desperation of this conflict. More sophisticated in planning, more brutal in execution, but also more reckless in their targeting of innocents. Miami remains in Dubai, beyond the reach of Scottish law enforcement, but his network has been severely damaged. Several of his key lieutenants have been arrested or killed, his financial operations have been disrupted, his reign of terror continues, but it's not as absolute as it once was. So here's what this story is really about. It's not just about gangsters and police chases. It's about all of us. It's about the kind of society we want to build, and whether we'll allow violence to define our communities or find the courage to demand something better. Thanks for sticking with this deep dive into Scotland's gang war. If this story opened your eyes to what's really happening behind the headlines, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that goes beyond the surface. Share your thoughts in the comments.